Someone is toying with this family. Not just the person who took Nancy Guthrie from her bed. Not just the masked figure who disabled the camera and vanished into the Arizona desert. That person committed a crime. That person is being hunted. But around that crime, circling it like vultures around something dying in the heat, a second ring of predators has emerged. And what they are doing to the Guthrie family may not involve a mask or a backpack, but it is its own kind of cruelty. Deliberate, calculated, and in some cases, criminal. Because in the 5 months since Nancy Guthrie disappeared, her family has been targeted not once, not twice, but repeatedly by people who saw a mother's abduction as an opportunity. An opportunity to extort money. An opportunity to manufacture clicks. An opportunity to generate content. An opportunity to build a following. And an opportunity to toy with the emotions of people who are living through the worst experience of their lives. And the question no one is asking loudly enough is this: why has it been so easy for so many people to do this? And why has so little been done to stop them? Before we go further, if you want true crime coverage that holds every player in a case accountable, not just the suspect but the system around them, subscribe to Investigative Case Files and turn on notifications. Because this episode is not about the kidnapping. This episode is about the people feeding on it. Now let's identify them one by one. The first predator arrived within 72 hours of Nancy's disappearance. His name is Derek Colella. He is 42 years old, from Hawthorne, California. He has no connection to the Guthrie family. He has no connection to Tucson. He has no connection to the crime. What he had was a television set, a phone, and an idea. On February 4th, 3 days after Nancy was reported missing, Colella sent 2 text messages directly to members of the Guthrie family. The messages went to Annie Guthrie, Nancy's daughter, and to her husband, Tommaso Cioni. The text read, and this is from the federal complaint: "Did you get the Bitcoin? We're waiting on our end for the transaction." 3 minutes after sending those texts, he placed a 9-second phone call to another family member. Think about what that means from the family's perspective. Your mother has been taken from her bed. You have found blood at her front door. You do not know if she is alive. You have seen reports of a ransom demand. And then your phone buzzes, and a message arrives from someone claiming to be part of the operation, asking whether you have gathered the Bitcoin, saying they are waiting. The terror of that moment is almost impossible to overstate. For Annie and Tommaso, that text could have been real. It could have been from the person who had Nancy. It could have been the lifeline they were desperate for. And instead, it was from a man sitting in his apartment in Southern California who later told investigators he pulled the family's contact information from a website and sent the texts because he was watching television coverage of the case and wanted to see if the family would respond. He wanted to see if the family would respond. A grieving daughter receives a text that appears to come from her mother's kidnapper, and the person who sent it was running an experiment, testing whether the terror would produce a reaction, poking at an open wound to watch it bleed. Colella was arrested by the FBI on February 5th and charged with transmitting a ransom demand in interstate commerce and using a telecommunications device with intent to abuse, threaten, or harass. He appeared in federal court in Santa Ana, California, and was released on a $20,000 bond. His trial was scheduled for June 23rd at the federal courthouse in Tucson. The FBI's special agent in charge, Hythe Yankee, addressed the imposter problem directly at a press conference. He warned that anyone who tried to take advantage of and profit from this situation would be investigated and held accountable. But Colella was just the beginning. Because while a California man was being arrested for fake texts, something far more sophisticated and far more insidious was happening overseas. Fact-checking organizations documented that false stories about the Guthrie family were being manufactured by spam networks operating out of Vietnam. These were not casual social media posts from concerned citizens. These were AI-generated articles, published on fake news sites, promoted through Facebook pages controlled from Southeast Asia, and designed specifically to target American and European audiences with fabricated claims. One of the most viral false stories claimed that Nancy's son-in-law, Tommaso Cioni, had been blockaded inside his home, surrounded by police, as the investigation suddenly focused on him as a suspect. The headline was explosive. The story was shared thousands of times, and it was completely fabricated. Fact-checkers traced the claim directly to a Vietnamese spam operation that used artificial intelligence tools to generate fake content at scale. The Facebook page promoting the false story was confirmed through transparency data to be controlled from Vietnam. The article linked to the headline did not even contain the same claims as the headline itself. It was pure bait, manufactured rage designed to generate clicks, ad revenue, and engagement from people who would never check the source. And the damage it caused was real, because thousands of Americans read that headline and believed it. They shared it. They commented on it. They used it as evidence in their own theories. They pointed at Sione and said, "I knew it." And none of it was true. Sheriff Nanos himself addressed the impact of this disinformation campaign when he stepped in after what he described as wild cyber accusations targeting cleared family members. The family had already been publicly cleared as possible suspects. The sheriff had already called the accusations cruel. And still, foreign spam networks were manufacturing stories designed to direct American suspicion toward people the investigation had already excluded. If you're still watching at this point, drop a comment that says I'm still here. Because what comes next is even more disturbing, and it is happening right now, not overseas, but on the streets of Nancy Guthrie's own neighborhood. In the months following Nancy's disappearance, a wave of true crime content creators descended on the Catalina Foothills neighborhood where Nancy lived. They came with cameras. They came with live streaming equipment. They came with makeshift tents. And according to the Pima County Sheriff's Department, they came with complete disregard for the community, the investigation, and the family. The Sheriff's Department said it received numerous complaints about individuals blocking roadways, trespassing, and disrupting the peace in the neighborhood. Some content creators were accused of ordering pizza to the scene while it was still an active crime scene in the early days of the investigation. One was caught on video urinating in public behind a makeshift tent. Others sat along the easement in the neighborhood for days and weeks, filming, live streaming, and turning a family's nightmare into a content mill. Deputies initially issued warnings. The neighborhood's homeowners association posted no trespassing signs throughout the community. Citations were issued. None of it worked. In June, the Sheriff's Department made 3 arrests. Alexander Zabel Jr., age 54, who runs a YouTube channel, was charged with 2 counts of obstructing a highway or thoroughfare and 1 count of public nuisance. Troy Lewis Bradshaw, age 34, was charged with 1 count of public nuisance. Damian Todd Enderle, age 46, was cited and released for public nuisance. Within hours of the arrests, their followers crowd-funded enough money to cover bail entirely, and the creators were back on the street by the following evening. One of them live-streamed his own arrest and announced on camera that they were being targeted. But the situation escalated further. Zabel was arrested a second time within a week while again live-streaming outside Nancy Guthrie's home. During the second arrest, a deputy was reportedly knocked down. Zabel defended his presence by posting on social media that he was there to exercise his First Amendment rights and keep public attention on a case that remains unsolved. Savannah Guthrie responded. According to TMZ, which obtained a police report detailing Savannah's call to authorities, the Today Show anchor had repeatedly expressed concerns about the activities of certain online content creators ever since her mother's kidnapping. She told investigators she feared for the safety of herself and her family because of some of their actions. She was described as extremely upset to learn that Zabel had returned to her mother's home after his initial arrest. The police report itself contained a line that captures the situation with devastating clarity. It stated that due to the Nancy Guthrie case, the residents in her neighborhood were exhausted from the constant observations, media scrutiny, and the invasion of so-called journalists who have been taking advantage of someone else's tragedy to increase their social media followers and potentially benefit financially. Sheriff Nanos issued a zero-tolerance warning. Anyone found trespassing, blocking roadways, or utilizing the Guthrie tragedy for social media clout would face immediate arrest and prosecution. But the content creators were not the only people toying with the family through media channels. The ransom note landscape itself became a circus of exploitation. Beyond the 2 notes that investigators believe were legitimate communications from the actual kidnapper, the case attracted a swarm of imposters, opportunists, and attention seekers who flooded media outlets and the family with false claims. The FBI confirmed multiple arrests for false or fake ransom notes. Sheriff Nanos addressed the pattern directly on a Tucson radio program just yesterday, saying it was a shame that this happens, but that he believed investigators were looking at another fake note in the latest claim sent to TMZ. That latest claim arrived from a person who said Nancy had been abducted and had died, and who claimed to possess a video of the main guy with Nancy on the day she supposedly died. The sender wrote that they had a phone stashed in a secure location guaranteeing both the information it stores and the safety of the phone. They claimed there were two kidnappers. They claimed to have pictures, names, addresses, and ages. Sheriff Nanos was skeptical. He told the radio host that high-profile cases produce fake notes and that people abuse the situation, call in fake ransom notes, and claim things for the sake of media and the family that disturb entire neighborhoods. But here is where it gets complicated. Because not every communication that looks like a hoax necessarily is one. TMZ separately received close to a dozen emails from a person who claimed to have information about the case, but who was not the kidnapper. This person initially demanded 1 Bitcoin, roughly $64,000, in exchange for information about Nancy's whereabouts and her kidnapper's identities. Their first email said time is of the essence. The next day, the tone changed completely. The follow-up said time is no longer of the essence. TMZ believed those emails might be legitimate. Their reasoning was that a scammer would maintain urgency to pressure a quick payment, while a person who abandons urgency may be telling the truth about something having changed, specifically that Nancy was no longer alive. TMZ offered to pay the Bitcoin themselves. They contacted the FBI and asked whether paying the person would help or hurt the investigation. The FBI called the idea interesting and said they would get back to TMZ. Then, according to TMZ, the FBI never responded. 6 follow-up attempts went unanswered. Retired FBI profiler Jim Clemente offered a blunt assessment of those emails. He said either the author of those emails is a complete fool or it is completely fake. His reasoning was simple. If the person actually had the information they claimed, they could collect the family's $1 million reward instead of asking for $60,000 in Bitcoin. But here is the thing about Clemente's logic. It assumes the emailer is rational. It assumes they are weighing their options clearly. A person connected to a criminal operation who fears retribution, who fears being identified, who fears the FBI, might not behave rationally. They might ask for less because they want to get something and disappear. They might avoid the official reward because claiming it would require identification. They might contact TMZ instead of the FBI because they believe law enforcement will arrest them rather than pay them. The FBI now believes that anonymous emailer may be a woman, and investigators are still actively trying to identify that person. Whether they are a hoaxer or a genuine lead remains one of the most unresolved questions in the entire case. And then there is the profiler who threw another grenade into the mix. Veteran criminal profiler John Kelly told a major news outlet that he does not believe either of the 2 ransom notes the family considers legitimate are real. His reasoning was that the personalities of the 2 letters do not match. The first note was strictly about the dollars, about the bucks. The second note expressed something like regret, claiming the death was not intentional and that Nancy was buried with nature now. Kelly said the kind of person who would violently abduct an elderly woman from her bed is not going to be worried about leaving condolences. He said those are 2 different personalities. If Kelly is right, then the family may have been responding to communications that were never from the actual kidnapper at all. They may have posted their February 7th video, the one where Savannah said, "We received your message and we understand," in response to a note written by someone who had nothing to do with the crime, but who knew enough details to make it feel authentic. That possibility is almost too cruel to contemplate. A family, desperate for any contact with the person holding their mother, responding on camera to a message that may have come from an imposter who used publicly reported details to craft a convincing fake. And doing so while millions of people watched and parsed every word for hidden meaning. But law enforcement sources who spoke to CBS News maintained that investigators believe both notes were likely sent by the person or people who abducted Nancy, and that both were likely sent from the same computer IP address. Savannah herself said she believes the 2 notes they responded to are real. So even among the experts, there is no consensus. Some believe the notes are genuine. Others believe they are fabricated. And the family is caught in the middle, forced to react to communications that may or may not be from the person who destroyed their lives. This is what toying with a family looks like. It looks like a man in California sending fake ransom texts to see if the family would respond. It looks like spam factories in Vietnam manufacturing false headlines about a cleared family member being surrounded by police. It looks like content creators setting up camp in a grieving neighborhood, blocking roads, urinating behind tents, live streaming arrests, and crowdfunding bail money from followers who treat a kidnapping like entertainment. It looks like anonymous emailers sending contradictory claims to celebrity news outlets, one day saying Nancy is dead, the next day saying she is alive in Mexico, always asking for money, always just out of reach. It looks like profilers publicly disagreeing about whether the notes the family staked their hopes on were even real. It looks like a family posting videos begging for communication from a kidnapper who may have already stopped listening, while the rest of the world watches and judges and speculates and accuses. And it looks like a sheriff standing at a microphone, over and over again, saying the same thing. This is a shame. People abuse this. The family are victims. The question this episode is asking is not whether the family is guilty. The sheriff answered that months ago. They are not. The question is who is going to protect them from everything else. From the extortionists who send fake texts at 2 in the morning. From the foreign operations that manufacture lies about their loved ones for ad revenue. From the content creators who turn their mother's front yard into a set. From the anonymous voices who claim to have answers and then vanish when asked to prove it. From the profilers who publicly debate whether the notes the family clings to are real, without considering what that debate does to the people holding on to those notes as their last connection to whoever took their mother. Because here is what the documented record shows. In 5 months, the FBI has made arrests for fake ransom communications. The sheriff has arrested content creators for disrupting the neighborhood. Fact-checkers have traced fabricated stories to overseas spam networks. And investigators continue to process DNA, analyze footage, and follow every credible lead. But the predators keep coming. They keep emailing TMZ. They keep live streaming from the easement. They keep generating fake headlines. They keep sending texts to see if the family will respond. And the family keeps enduring it. Savannah Guthrie told her colleague on the Today Show that she cries every morning. She said she cannot be at peace. She said somebody knows something. She begged for help. And while she was begging, someone in Vietnam was using artificial intelligence to write a fake article about her brother-in-law being blockaded by police. While she was begging, a man in California was texting her sister pretending to be the kidnapper. While she was begging, a YouTuber was setting up a tent outside her mother's home and live streaming to subscribers who donated money to keep him there. While she was begging, an anonymous emailer was telling TMZ they had video of the main guy with Nancy on the day she probably died and asking for Bitcoin to hand it over. While she was begging, a retired profiler was going on television to say the notes she believes are real might be fakes written by a completely different personality. That is who is toying with this family. Not one person, an ecosystem. An ecosystem of extortionists, fabricators, content parasites, anonymous tipsters, and professional commentators who have collectively turned the worst moment of a family's life into content, currency, and controversy. And the cruelest part of all is that somewhere inside that noise, there may be a real signal. One of those emails might be genuine. One of those tips might matter. One of those anonymous voices might actually know something. But the signal is buried so deep beneath the garbage that investigators cannot find it without wading through thousands of false leads, fake notes, and manufactured stories that waste time, resources, and the family's last reserves of hope. Sheriff Nanos said it best. People have great interest, and that is good because it helps us. But then it really gets abused. People call and fake ransom notes. People claim things for the sake of media. People get out and disturb an entire neighborhood. That is the other crime in the Nancy Guthrie case. Not the abduction, the exploitation that followed it. And until someone stops it, until the fake notes stop arriving, until the content creators stop trespassing, until the spam networks stop fabricating, until the anonymous emailers are identified and either verified or arrested, the Guthrie family will continue to be toyed with by people who see a mother's disappearance not as a tragedy, but as an opportunity. 84 years old, needed medication every day, could barely walk to her mailbox, taken from her bed in the middle of the night. And 5 months later, The people who should be focused entirely on finding her are forced to spend time arresting YouTubers, tracking spam networks, sorting real notes from fake ones, and telling the public, again and again, that the family is not the enemy. That is what toying with a family looks like, and it needs to stop. If you made it to the end, subscribe to Investigative Case Files, hit the like button, and leave a comment with the one thing you think law enforcement should do right now to protect this family from further exploitation. Keep it factual, keep it focused, and keep it respectful of people who are carrying more pain than any of us can imagine. Because the Nancy Guthrie case does not just need a suspect identified. It needs the circus around it shut down so the people doing the real work can finally do it in peace. This is Investigative Case Files, and we will be here until the truth is found.